So that was rather a sublime paragraph. The previous paragraph seemed to begin with some rather limited ideas of the aperture of Brahman, was firmly within traditional yogic territory. But then we got this wonderful paragraph with these metaphors relating to the self, which was quite inspired. And this often seems to be the case. A particular page will start with a rather banal or bland question or notion, but then takes off with it and makes it fresh and puts it firmly into the realm of self-inquiry. Speech terminates in you, O self. It reappears somewhere else. In other words, after this inspirational paragraph on the self, there's no more you can say about it. In fact, you can't actually say anything about it. So speech comes to an end when your attention is on itself, is on the self. It reappears somewhere else, which means when it's not on the self, then you can start talking. Then you can start talking about things. When the attention is on the self, strictly speaking, you can't say anything about it. But when it's not in the self, then you can carry on talking. Even as different ornaments are fashioned out of gold, all the countless objects of creation have been fashioned out of you. The distinction is verbal. That's when we start talking about things. We're no longer talking about the self, we're talking about verbal distinctions. This is you, this is I. Such expressions are used when you yourself adore yourself or describe yourself for your own delight. When we talk about the self, we have to start creating notions of you, of me, and all the rest of it. This is a nice way of looking at things. All the notions that we have are just ways of the self exploring itself, of talking about itself. Even as a huge forest fire might momentarily assume various forms, though it is but a single flame, even so your non-dual being appears to be all these diverse objects in this universe. You are the string in which all these worlds are strung, like a rosary or mala. You are the ground of truth in which all these worlds abide. The worlds are forever potentially present in you, and by you they are made manifest, as the flavour of foodstuff is made manifest by cooking. However, though these worlds seem to exist, they will cease to be if you are not. You are their reality. Even this body will fall down lifeless like a log of wood. Well, there wouldn't even be a body in the first place, or a notion of one. Happiness and sorrow collapse when they approach you, even as darkness disappears when it approaches light. However, the experience of happiness, etc., is made possible only because of the light of awareness derived from you. Everything arises in consciousness. If there was no consciousness, there would only be oblivion. So this consciousness, awareness, self, the Lord, everything is dependent on it. Without consciousness, how can there be anything? There's only something because you're conscious, or because there is consciousness. Prahlad, continue to contemplate. Pleasure and pain, happiness and unhappiness owe their existence to you, O self. They are born of you, and they lose their identity when their non-existence, independent of you, is realized. They lose their identity in the sense that there's just the experiencing. We don't get caught up in the psychological baggage associated with either pleasure or pain. Just the physical experience is what is experienced. Which is an important point. Most psychological pain, we can understand it as having a physical counterpart, and it's usually in the body somewhere. So when you're experiencing emotional pain or some sort of psychological pain, It's quite a useful technique to actually see if we can find where it is in the body, because it usually has a physical counterpart, or it seems to have a physical counterpart, and it can be isolated. It can be made into the focus of our awareness. And that's one way of dealing with uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable emotions. Rather than get lashed around by them, lie still, lie or sit still. Close your eyes and see if you can identify where this pain is, where this emotional pain is. It's not an intangible thing because you're feeling it. It can be identified. It can be isolated. It can be looked at. It can be brought into full awareness. So that's what we can do instead of thinking about it, instead of getting caught up in the drama of it, which fuels it. So this is what it means when they lose their identity. There's just the experiencing, the awareness, not the drama, the story, which ensues and which feeds the pain. Even as an optical illusion comes into being and vanishes in the twinkling of an eye, the illusory experiences of pain and pleasure appear and disappear in the twinkling of an eye. And that's what you notice when you practice this awareness. Certain psychological pain appears to be persistent, but it's not always there. It comes and goes. We're a kaleidoscope of experiences, of feelings. There are feelings coming and going all the time. So it might not seem obvious that they appear and disappear in the twinkling of an eye, but they can easily. You can move your awareness to another experience that's happening immediately. You don't need to be focused on the same pain. You can move your awareness elsewhere. You can distract yourself from it if you want. They appear in the light of awareness, and they disappear when they are perceived as non-different from that awareness. Once the sensation is identified, once the pain that you're experiencing is identified, and you've got it in your awareness, not thinking about it, not contemplating it in terms of the drama, not feeding the drama around it, just looking at it, it is possible then to make a different story about it, or to appreciate it in a different light. In a way, it's almost like the universe saying hello. The universe is saying, hello, I'm here. And it's the universe in the grandest sense. It's the universe in the sense of the self. So the story can change. The story can change. The story behind the pain can change. They are born the moment they die, and they die the moment they are born. Who is the perceiver of all this mystery? They're coming and going all the time. And is there a perceiver? Who is the perceiver of all this mystery? Is there a perceiver? And if there is a perceiver, then who is it? And if there's not a perceiver, this is the distinction between awareness and the object of awareness. We can talk about awareness and we can talk about the object of awareness. In this case, it could be a sensation of pain or sensation of pleasure. But are there two things there? There is only the object of awareness, the thing that awareness is being directed to. Or we can just rest in the awareness. So sometimes we can say there isn't actually any awareness, there's just stuff happening.